It's Jay. I'm back again for another one. And tonight I have with me,
It's Drew. I finally found my way back, man.
hey
Finally
man.
found my way back. It's been years. It
It's
hasn't been
been,
years, has it? It's just since August. That's all. But
yeah,
still,
yeah, it was like 6 months, but it crossed the line. You crossed the, December to January situation. Life be lifing. That's how that goes. But it's funny. I was smart enough to know to have like a little list of things to like, hey, when we do talk, I still have a list of things that was coming up. Like we gotta touch on it. First of all, it's good to see you, good to hear you, and happy new year to you.
same to you, man. It's good to be heard and good to be seen by you and to be here and good to see you as well, man. You got a new look. It's a new year, a new you.
That's right.
So let's
Getting
do
ready.
this.
Let's
It's an
do it.
exciting time.
All right. So just for purposes of the list, is there no end to Tyler Perry?
I don't think it needs to be. I don't consume it, as we know,
Yeah, I don't either.
but I am not angry about it like I used. Not, I never was angry,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm just not mad at it anymore because you just learn to mind your business the older you get. And you be
Stay out of
like,
grown
that's them.
folks' business.
Yeah, that's them down the street.
Right, right.
He's them down the street. They always acting a fool. What did he do now that made your list? Because it's got to be a million different things, but I don't keep up. So what's grinded your gears from TPS?
Well, Tyler Perry be Tyler Perrying. I was weak. I wanted some, black content. And I was like, hey, he got this show on Netflix called Beauty in Black. Let me see what that's about. Now I know it's going to be some hot messness, but it seems all right. And sometimes the stuff seems like it's going to be mess. You're not thrown off by the stank because you know what you're walking into. But this man has levels, and my tolerance is, I guess, is never really there. So I tried watching a few episodes of it, and I'll say he never disappoints me. But it's just like it's gonna make me have a conversation I don't really want to have. So I'm not gonna go there. But I think his content is mislabeled. I think his content is mislabeled. I think that he's saying you're going in for burgers, but it's really tacos. And he should say that it's a taco restaurant. He should just do that. He should just do that.
What do you think he should be calling his like one, let me ask you this. What do you think he says his entertainment is? What do you think he presents himself as?
I think he presents himself as an everyday guy who just came up and he's pushed by the love of his fans, and that in a way he could do no wrong because people support.
Right.
That's what I think. And I think
Yeah.
throughout the years he's lost his eyesight, and people are just so used to getting on the number two bus that they are continuing to get on it and are afraid to say anything. They're afraid to, or they don't know there's a bus number one and a bus number 4 and 15, but they stay on that old, that sturdy old, number two bus with the two flat tires and one rim falling off. Yeah, like I said, I really think his stuff is mislabeled. I think his stuff is for a crowd who he's making it for a crowd to make a crowd comfortable by okay, say you don't want to admit that you eat meat and you go to a salad spot, so it looks good when you walk in, so you feel comfortable, and when people see you walk in they're like, oh, he's eating healthy. But when you go in they serve steak. Now you know you want a steak, but you want everybody to think that you like salad.
So what are you getting at? Make it plain. Because you've said that analogy already. So make it more plain.
Why don't you just let me have that? I'm trying to be good. I'm just
It's just show. Like, and nobody's gonna punish you. Just make it
no,
plain.
no. It's not that nobody gonna punch me. I'm just trying to, I just try to because then it turns into a whole other kind of conversation. Okay, I think he does gay content. I think that he's not comfortable saying it's gay content. So no matter what he does, even though it starts off, it'll turn into that. So even if it's a relationship between a woman and a man, by the time it goes through the whole story or arcs or whatever, that guy's gonna end up with another guy, some kind of way. some kind of way, or he's gonna have a brother, and somebody's gonna run into those guys getting into it some kind of way, and it's kind of like I didn't go in there for that content. And not saying it's wrong or nothing, but I didn't want a steak. I went in for salad, like it said
It's
on the sign.
interesting in this analogy you're referring to gay as steak, but I think that I'm messing with you, man.
I know you.
But no, I think when you I get what you're saying is that like I think one thing that happens in writing is that you do want to be inclusive and you want to be represented. You want to represent what's your core audience and you want to represent, like your targeted audience. And I think that is his audience of people that he writes for,
What
that whether
audience
they
is
go,
that?
what we're talking about, like that you were saying that like he represents LGBTQIA storylines
Okay.
predominantly in almost every story, predominantly male.
You see, movies like that or shows, and that's what you're walking into.
If
That's
you
what it is, right?
But yeah, but see, I think at the end of the day, Jay, if you were to write a comic book or if you were to write a book or a script or anything creatively, you're going to lend a lot of yourself to that. And then your editors and your people are going to then take a little bit of you out of there because they need it to make sense. And in his case, no one takes anything out because he owns everything.
Right.
And so we get a chance to see a lot of who he is, and that might be the way his life goes. Just saying it plain, not knowing the man
No,
but
yeah.
speculating from us watching the documentary and other conversations we had, like I've said, it could just be that we're watching his art imitate his life, where he's always tried to be with a woman, but he ends up with a man. That could be where he's just letting his art reflect this segment of the population of men that he's like, hey, I'm not the only one. I'm creating this art that is reflective of that. And Spike made stuff that was reflective of New York, sneakerheads. I'm making things that are reflective of Undercover Brothers.
Yeah.
And but if you go for the steak, one, it's sort of like if you walk into the salad bar that has steam coming out and it smell like steak, hey bro, that's on you. You get what I'm saying? Because if you go and pull up to a Tyler Perry flick or a
Right.
TV show, by now, you should have smelled the steak on the grill at the salad bar. Like to stick with your analogy,
Right,
and
right,
it's
right. And
yeah,
that's why I don't go in. But I just think it's very interesting because it's still mislabeled in a way.
yeah,
Um, and so that's the part I'm talking about. And
yeah. It
and
is yeah. And the weird thing about that conversation though is that the boxes that we want to get to in society, right,
yeah.
is one where we don't have to say this is a black show, this is a gay show, this is just a show that reflects life, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking about
But
mislabeled
not,
like I'm going in for G.I. Joe and it turns into a Barbie movie. It's fine. It's not to put in a box, but okay. It's almost like a genre of movie. You're going to go see a Western and it turns to sci-fi. Some people are going to be pissed because some people are going to like it because they like everything. And they like, oh, that's a good fusion of the two. And some people are going to be like, I went in to go see a Western. I don't want to see this chick flick or I don't want to see this sci-fi craziness. I wanted to see a Western.
they want to see
So
it the way they used to seeing it.
so it's because like people don't like labels, but then if everything didn't have a label, you couldn't find nothing. Go take off a genre of music and put it in a music store and good luck. And I'm a crate digger. So I hate labels. But then when people be like, oh, my music, it does everything. Okay. So put it in country and see if somebody finds you and you do rap music and you do a little bit of everything and see if they can find you over there.
Well, I
Since you
mean,
don't want no label.
Beyonce tried that, and we see how that worked out with the country
Exa-
people.
exactly. Exactly. But there's labels for a reason.
It's good that you have your own show because it's one of those great conversations that you should always feel free to have, right? Because in a mainstream way, this is a conversation that people won't necessarily have because there's a fear of the way you would come across, or there's a fear of how things are being said, and there's a truth to what you're saying that I can meet you at in this conversation. It's like, yeah, like bruh, at some point, just let people know what you are without saying it. But I do think that he thinks he's more. Here's my playing devil's advocate for him.
Okay.
I do think that he believes that he's more creative.
Yeah,
and has something more to offer than what keeps coming out. And so I think that the second that he looks back, I think if he could ever figure a way to write himself out of the hole and give you something different, he would. And so I don't think that there's a motivation for him to ever be like, yo, this is what TPS is.
yeah,
Like it's always gonna be I'm selling steakums over here. I mean, I'm always this, he's
yeah.
always gonna say he's salad bar because in his
Right,
mind, he just really thinks
right.
he can master this salad bar thing. And it's like, nah, bro, you still stuck on the
And
on the grill.
And then also some artists do think they're too slick because I was even guilty of that. Even with some of my paintings and drawings and stuff, I would be thinking I'm hiding something in there. And people who know me or don't even know me but know art was like, "Oh, this means this and this means that." And I'm like, "Oops!" I thought I was slick and kind of, put enough layers on it and colors and disorganized this to throw this off, and people read it like a book who knows art or knew me, and so you might be, guilty of that too. But I thought it was just interesting that it seemed like that show was going to be like almost like it's about a stripper, a female stripper, almost like Players Club kind of thing. And then, you know, there's
So,
no new scenes of a women, but then, it's a guy getting plowed by a guy and his mom walks in on it. Like, so how would
well, let's make it plain then. Because it's like, I like the way you marched around that. And
did I
because
say
you're
it
a
wrong?
distinct, no, no, you didn't say anything wrong. I like how you said that because, like, you're such a distinguished gentleman that you said that in the most gentlemanly way possible.
You're funny.
I'm used to being around a circle of men who would just say it a little bit more plain. They'd be like, I came for the T and, the T and A, and I got something else. And because, like, for example, he created a classier, so to speak, P Valley, right?
I
So
don't even
P
watch P
Valley.
Valley.
Well, of course you wouldn't. You are in a distinguished gentleman category, right? So it's sort of like, like what I mean by it, see, like just that facial expression you
Like you
just
being
that
funny.
that is a distinguished gentleman's response. Like in other words, you wouldn't consume something just because of what you could potentially see. There are men and women who will watch things just based off of, oh, is there gonna be some naked women in there?
Oh, I can't do it.
Oh, is it gonna, yeah,
Okay.
you still,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Like
Okay.
that's what I mean by like you are in a distinguished gentleman category, right? And Tyler Perry made a film, has apparently made a show with the same premise as P Valley, but actually left out the nudity. And it's like, how can you have a show based on stripping or on a strip club or a person being a stripper and there's no nudity from the strip club, but there's actually sex, but only sex between men
Right. With nudity.
with nudity. Yo, that's wild. And so
That's why I was saying it was switched it up, and I only watched like 3 episodes. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. And to be honest, it could have been no nudity and did it the way they wanted to do it because I know it's on Netflix and it might not be that racy or whatever. So that's fine. It's just like why switch? Okay,
Netflix loves a butt cheek. Like they throw some nudity out there. Like
okay,
I've been watching something with my kids and be like, ow.
uh, okay,
And all my kids are grown.
yeah.
And it's just
Still kind of
and it's
crunchy
that
though.
awkward, yeah, it's that awkward moment of like, didn't know that this was in there. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
no, I mean, like, I think, yeah, that is a very just to, and I'm trying not, like I said, I respect the show. I recognize and plus I'm not a raunchy person in general anyway, but
yeah.
there's a more raunchy way that my invasive thoughts or my intrusive thought would have me to explain this, which is not for this particular show, but it's like that is wild. That's the best way I can put it. That is wild that this man has created a show where part of the premise is that the person works in a strip club and somehow that's that's not shown at all.
Right.
Not that I'm saying we should exploit or objectify women in that particular way, but if someone's going to be exploited or overly sexualized, if you were telling me that, if you told me the premise, if I was that guy, if I was the kind of guy that watched shows because I wanted to partake in the objectification of a woman, I would be pissed if I turned on and I'm like, hold on, I done sat here and got through 4 episodes and it ain't no, I ain't seen one. Like it ain't a nipple, nothing. Like, remember on Boomerangs, that's a nipple because I'm drooling. Like, you get none of
How do
that.
you know? 'Cause I'm drooling. Yeah.
Like you get none of that, but you get this other stuff. Yeah, that's wild. That's almost like Tyler Perry playing with us a little bit and punishing us for maybe like wanting to see that. And he's like, you know what? I know some of y'all pervs came over here looking for some of this, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hit you with some of that. And I almost feel like it's intentional. When you do something like that, I think it's intentional because let me tell you something. Shows like P Valley, they got their stuff in. They got a homosexual relationship in it, right?
But that's
But
straight. That's straight and homosexual, right? It's both, right? Or
it's
no?
so much nudity that like you from the get-go, it's nothing. And it's women. It's a strip club. It is women walking around naked. Opening scene, you got to make a moral decision. Is this for me? Is this good for my soul? Like you're gonna
That's
have to
why I
make
got
that
off. Yeah,
decision.
yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
watch the whole episode. I didn't watch the whole
Yeah.
first episode. I'm like,
You
oh, I'm
gotta,
good.
because
I'm good.
right away you're just gonna be
Okay.
like, all right, this is about to be up on me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like it's just like, hey, you either need to run or you need to just be like, okay,
Dig
okay,
in.
all right, Lord, I'm just gonna be in disobedience. Like whichever, wherever you are with your walk, you're gonna have to make a decision, and P Valley making you make a decision.
Ooh,
What Tyler Perry is doing is taking the church guy who wants to teeter that line and who probably may have turned it on because he's like, hey, I want to see a little TNA. And Tyler's like, nah, I just got the A over here, buddy. And it's crazy. The bait and switch is crazy that he's getting away with it. But here's the thing, the follow-up, I don't anticipate. I mean, like, even if it's a season two, even if it continues, it, I'll put you like this. I talk about it whenever someone brings it up because I can find an entertaining way to talk about anything. It's my job, but I have no interest in TPS and whatever they put out unless they give me a job. And then I got an interest in did the check cash. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not for us. And honestly, the more you listen and you watch and you pay attention, it's not by us. That is Tyler Perry's mind at work.
yeah.
And that pen is an interesting thing, man, because I've sat down and states of depression and started writing out characters and working on different stuff. And I've seen some stuff come out of me that is not necessarily representative of my moral compass.
Yeah.
And I've seen some things come out of me that I didn't think that I would ever be able to create.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how and what his creative writing process is and what it looks like for a person like him. I know that it's a it's a miracle that he's able to do all that he does, and we should have an appreciation for the longevity that he's had and leave it at that. Happy Black History Month. You
Mm.
know, like let's just leave it there. Like it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. And I even try to protect myself even by watching the trailer. And the trailer looked halfway decent, but trailers could be cut a certain kind of way. And had Debbie
They can't.
Morgan in it, so I figured, how bad could it be with Debbie Morgan in it? And
She's been in some stinkers though.
I
There are
haven't
some
seen her in a
people,
while, so I believe
yeah.
you.
There are people that I love, and then I be realizing that like they don't always take the best. Keith David is one of the best voiceover
Yes, he
slash
is.
actors, and he sings. He does beautiful music
Oh, really?
live. Yeah, he sings live mainly. I
Wow.
don't think he ever cuts albums, whatever, but he's got this large, booming theatrical voice that
Yeah.
just hits the back of the room. So he's one of those people that you will never see in a big venue.
Hmm.
It's more of an intimate setting kind of thing. So always kind of look and see, is he playing at a local jazz club or something? And it'll
Okay.
be a treat for you to catch. But it's like
Wow.
Keith David is the man. But Keith David has picked some trash projects. He's picked some of my favorites too.
Same here.
But he's also picked some and then he's picked some that was kind of trash to turn into my favorites
Yeah.
because Greenleaf is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's people like Debbie Morgan, Ernie Hudson.
Right, right,
Uh, a handful of what's his name? Oh, Beyonce's ex stepdad. And so like it's people like that that, our whole childhood, our whole life, we've seen them and stuff.
right. But that
And
used to mean
and
something else different back then. So
yeah, it was a
I was giving Tyler Perry some credit for some folks that I grew up with and kind of figured like, like Felicia Rashad. Now I know she might have did some spotty stuff too, but like seeing her, I'm thinking it's gonna be a certain type of, even if she don't have to play Claire Huxtable all the time, but I'm just saying it'd be a certain thing that I'll be going for thinking because she was in that movie, that it would be a certain kind of thing. Even though it doesn't
yeah,
dictate or guarantee the same character, I don't know. I just, but Tyler is paying well, and he is giving people chances that, are getting overlooked, and he is a vehicle that's actually going somewhere. So I understand them doing that, but I'm just saying, I'm happy to
yeah.
see people working. I'm glad to see that they're getting paid and getting out there and stuff. But um, I don't know. I just thought maybe it'd be something that I could, you know.
I mean, you gonna
But
have to go get you
you know,
some pure flicks or something and just bury your head in the sand and forget that the rest of the world exists.
you're funny. You're funny. But yeah, so that one, like I said, I just thought it was kind of interesting. But like I said, if you saw the trailer, yeah. But anyway, and then he did his attempt at based off a true story. He did this what the 6 888
Now
about
that
the
I enjoyed, but his fingerprint wasn't on that at all. Like that was one of
really.
those, like his studio was kind of there, but the story in itself had a whole plethora of different writers, producers, and other people involved. And it's based off a true story, and there was enough people involved with the actual story who was not going to let that be sullied too bad. Now, Kerry Washington isn't the who you would think would be the best pick, but she
Mhm.
she did a good job. She did a pretty good job.
So you like the movie? So you recommending it?
It's yeah. I mean, I would recommend it just based off of some movies are, and I don't know if you were. I mean, you remember this. Back in the day, February, at least February, we would always get these black movies that were
Mhm.
like made for TV movies.
Like the
This is
women
one.
of Brewster's Place and stuff like that. And
A little less traumatic because Women in Brewster Place was very traumatic.
it
But
was.
yes, along those lines, exactly along those lines, we would get the Jane Pittman story, like all
Mhm.
these different movies that would hit for us that told our stories in somewhat graceful manner, even if they were sometimes traumatic stories. But in this particular case, I think they told the story a little bit. It had that TV movie effect.
Okay.
It was almost like watching Hidden Figures if Hidden Figures had a TV movie budget,
Oh
kind of thing. Because, and when I say TV movie budget, I don't mean it in a insulting way.
no.
It was just very dialogue heavy without and it introduced us to some new faces. And you know me, man, like I've said this before on your show. And I've said it, and if I haven't, I say this in my life all the time. If you put together a large amount of black women, I'm there. And I mean that just in
Yeah.
the sense that like if we don't support black women doing pride working on their projects and working on things, and if you've got a movie that is about this great thing that black women did that we still benefit from to this day, some of the things that they helped put in place and do the way they reorganized this system that was just backed up in the way they had to fight against discrimination and all these different things and still made it happen. It's an inspiring story, and it was a real life story.
Mhm.
Big Sean's grandmother, rapper Big Sean's grandmother was one of the main characters.
Really?
So he was part of the team of people who helped kind of bring the movie to fruition. So I think because it's a historically accurate piece, like it didn't happen. Like they threw in obviously storylines to try to draw, to make it more entertaining, but some of those people are still alive to still tell, and so there was advice given and little stories told and I would watch it. I would watch it. I would have my daughters watch it. I would have any black woman who's needing like some inspiration or a pick me up to watch it, or any woman in general, because they have to overcome not only racism, vicious racism in the movie, they also have to overcome patriarchy at its worst.
Right.
Because these were black women being discriminated against. But it isn't a sad Negro spiritual kind of time for you. It's one of those that, unless you just hate black women, you should walk away inspired. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying that, just being real. Like, unless you just a sourpuss that's always looking for a reason to criticize black women, you should be able to walk away from that movie satisfied with like a, huh. Now, is it a, I'm gonna watch that again and I'm gonna watch that again? No. Like, I watched Hidden Figures like two more time additional times because it was on and I enjoyed it.
That was nice. It was well
Um,
done too.
yeah, and you could tell it had a bigger budget and it had the capacity to have a little bit more depth, and they could flesh out the character, the three main characters, a little bit deeper.
Hmm.
And so we were able to get invested a little bit more. This storyline was about the story itself. And so they could afford to flesh out one character, and then they kind of gave us general backgrounds on everyone else. So you could understand the plight of the other characters, but then they gave us one main protagonist, like
To
one
hold on
main
to.
per yeah,
Yeah.
to hold on to. And that in itself is good enough for this type of film. There was, because the more they give depth to these other characters, the less it takes away from the historical value of what they actually did and how in the short amount of time they had to do it. So
Yeah.
we were introduced to the characters, and it made us kind of, it makes you rush through you don't rush through it, but you can see the rush that they have,
Hmm.
because you feel like, oh, I hardly got to know this character just as much as these characters probably hardly got a chance to know themselves in that space or other people in that space before it was time to get the job done and get out. Because like most black women in this world still to this day, got to be next to perfect in a lot of situations, according to some people. They can be their whole beautiful black selves and be
Yeah.
that, but there are people who have a perception that they have to be next to perfect in order to just exist.
Yeah.
And so you got to imagine, this was a time where they didn't want black men in the army, let alone black women.
Right.
So yeah, I loved it. Like, I felt inspired. My wife was inspired by it. Um, I do have a documentary I want to tell you about later once you get down your list.
Okay.
But so remind me of that. But yeah, no, it's definitely I forgot that that had something to do with Tyler Perry. But
He,
listen, this is what
he
we've always
directed
talked
it.
about. This is what we always talk about with this. When Tyler Perry is hands off on a project,
Wait, didn't he direct it though? I thought he wrote and
I,
directed it.
if he did, it has no Tyler Perry fingerprints on it. There's a couple of scenes where there's a couple of dialogue scenes that
Yeah.
are real tropey
Yeah.
that I was just like, nah, they could have done better with this, but this has no feel of a Tyler Perry film. It's set, it's an outlier, almost like Daddy's Little Girls was. Remember when
I
how I
love
pointed,
that movie. I'm so yeah, he did do that.
yeah, it's that outlier, like Tyler's, like it's that case where you know that he had the type of talent that would demand that, yes, you may get a director credit, but these are people on set who can direct themselves. These are people who are on set that does not need to take direction from you and do demand stage direction and so there are probably people there, like when you have a star on the level of Kerry Washington, you're going to have a certain level of accountability to your shooting.
Yeah, they're not gonna let
Um,
it fail. They're not gonna let it fail.
And it was the same thing with Idris and Gabrielle Union when we called back to that movie where, yeah, there was the weak Tyler Perry story writing of,
Hmm.
then you're gonna run your Monte Carlo into, like, these are hard 80s cars that run into each other, and then you get out, you have a full-fledged fight and no one's injured, bruh. You run one of them 86 Monte Carlos into anything, somebody dying.
Yeah.
And but it's just like, like you have this weird, weak story, but you have this dynamic between these two incredibly beautiful black actors and Gabrielle Union and and Idris Elba, which they're not super believable,
Yeah.
but there was something about the dynamic of what the way that they invested into the characters that made me say, there's something better here. The
Mhm.
chemistry that they have is better than some of these weak plot points. And then we don't give credit to what's her name? Jesus, the twin, the one who's in all of the Tyler Perry movies.
Oh,
Uh,
I can't think of her name because she always plays somebody's wife and stuff.
Tasha Smith, and then
Yeah,
yeah. So her and her sister, they both like, and then so like they both act and direct, and
yeah,
they have great acting chops. And she brought something to that film other than just being loud, or as some people say, she was loud with a purpose in that
yeah.
film, as as a character I've seen in real life. That troubled mom who wants to be with the dope, who wants to be with the dope man.
Right.
Like those three people held that movie together in a way that said, okay, this is real deal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Everybody else was just TPS Studios people, just in awe of watching these three people make this movie work. You flip it over to something like this. When I say it feels like the same, and the reason why I'm drawing this analogy between these two Tyler Perry projects of saying like where they're the outliers is sometimes there's a certain level of talent that's involved that just gets the job done. And there's a certain level of story that's so important that he couldn't interfere. One, this was a period piece.
yeah,
So he couldn't really muck it up with his writing. There was nothing for him to write. It was a true story. You can't veer off. Like the only thing you could do is put a weak, like, and it was very weak, a love story. Like there's this secondary little love story.
huh,
But the truth of the matter is, as weak as that love story kind of feels in different points,
mhm,
it was real though. It was actually one of those people's actual how they met their person.
yeah.
So there are a couple of times, when you look back at it, there might be a couple of moments where you could say, but I won't even chalk that up to Tyler Perry. I would chalk that up to um, it is what it is when it comes to making a film. You got a deadline, you got a certain time you need to get something done, you got a certain amount of money you can spend.
Right.
And there are certain things that did happen. And you got to add these things in, like people died. You can't leave out that this person died and how they died.
Mhm.
So let's create a scene like this.
So
I
kind of
would
gave
watch.
him bumpers, huh? Kind of gave him
Yeah,
bumpers.
I think for this particular movie, for me, like I said, I enjoyed it. It does give my recommendation. I don't view it. I view it in that category of like, and everybody isn't for everybody. But
Yep.
but how they say, a broken
Broken
clock is
clock is
right
right.
twice a day.
Yep.
That's Tyler Perry in this particular case. If he did write, direct, or whatever, it's almost like if I was a little kid and Michael Jordan picked me up and put, with the ball in my hand and
Yeah.
said, put it in the rim.
Yeah.
That's literally like, how do you miss? You can't miss with a true story about Black women.
The Aaliyah story, or Wendy
Yeah, well,
Williams, or
those are stories that probably shouldn't have been made on those levels that they were made, right?
true.
Like Wendy Williams' story probably shouldn't have been made at all. And um
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah's story probably should have been in theaters. Like should have been a theater made movie.
Yeah.
Like should have been made as a big project, not a lifetime project.
Yeah. So maybe I'll try out the movie. I don't know. I'm a little scared. I don't want one of the characters to go into the mailroom and see her husband getting plowed by her brother or something.
Yeah, it's not yeah, it's nothing like that. I would have told you, I would have warned you, like,
No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding. But I'm just saying. But that's the kind of stuff that happens. And
Yeah,
where's the stamps? Oh, in the mailroom. Go right around the corner. Hey, James, what are you doing in here? Tony, what are you doing, Tony?
that's
Uh,
crazy.
mm. Yeah, so I'll check it out. Definitely on my list to see. But like I said, I was just kind of yeah. But it did. The trailer did seem like man, he got a little budget with this one, or they made him spend money on it because some of the shots. But even though they were like grand shots, they still did look kind of green screen and kind of in an angle where everything's lined up perfectly, and you know what I mean. But it had to
Yeah,
be bigger. You could tell
yeah,
that it was bigger.
and it could have been even bigger than it was, considering that the man owns a studio.
Right.
And and they've shot, and I mean, one, it's a a former army base,
Yeah,
like where training and things of that nature took
that's
place.
right.
So,
Yeah, it was a military
um,
base.
Marvel is shot there. So
Mhm.
many people shoot at his studios. There's no reason that he wouldn't be able to create a scene, a perfect scene, for the film. Um, Everything seems like he had the perfect layout to make that film a successful film just in Tyler Perry Studios alone. And so, yeah, it's definitely worth the watch. I think you wouldn't be disappointed. You would be surprised that it didn't feel,
Okay,
like a bad, doesn't feel like a bad match.
okay. Well, speaking of Tyler Perry, I got a theory, and I don't know if we talked about it before, but with him, and I think we did talk about it because we did talk about his little documentary that he had. Now he was mentioning we did have that conversation about Disney and the extra money he had to get the studio, and he had to partner up at that level and stuff like that, and so it's like Disney and the folks who quote unquote partner with Tyler that he works with, and people use his studios because it's like both of ours, like Debo and the bike, like it's both our bikes. It's both our
Yeah.
studios. And so when you shoot your own people, we'll put your black hand on that gun. So go ahead, keep making your studio productions. And that way, Mickey don't have to be guilty for the crimes that you are committing in his name. I'm gonna delete
That's
all that out. I'm just I'm just
now.
saying. I'm just saying. It's very suspect. Like, what's better than to, hire the person to take out his own folks? And you
Well,
get the same
I
work
think.
done, but you don't have to put your hands on it.
Well, I think the concept of even like what you're saying, the concept of that is what the rap industry is based off
That
of.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like so it's
But I think it explains why he got the reach and the access and stuff like that. You know.
yeah.
Um, yeah. But yeah.
Mm.
But also, but speaking about Tyler, it also made me think about Alex Cross, and then it made me think about the show Cross that they had on Amazon Prime. Did you check that out? The
No, I
Eldridge
didn't.
Hodge. Idris,
Mm.
really? Is there a
It's
reason
it's
why?
it's it's on the list of things to get to. A lot of people recommended it, said it would be really good. I'm a fan of him. I don't have any reservations about it. It just came out at a time where I wasn't, how sometimes you just have other stuff to
Yeah,
watch.
I get it.
And
I
it's
get it.
just like, oh, that's on my list. And I think my wife and I will probably get around to it real soon. Like,
Okay,
it's just, yeah, but I have no opinions or thoughts about it because I
no,
just
that's
have,
fair.
like, it's funny because sometimes you like take a peek, this, that, another.
Mhm.
I've had multiple people ask me to talk about it or say, and I've never.
That's
It's on the list.
interesting. That's
It's on the
interesting.
list. I don't know why I haven't gotten to it
That
because
that
I love watching dude in films and his
yeah.
shows and stuff.
I like that character. I even liked when Tyler Perry played him. The times that he did, and Morgan Freeman played him before that. Yeah, it was interesting. But the trailer was really dope, and the show lived up to the trailer. It was almost too good to be on Amazon Prime, to be honest. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. But okay. But I get it. I get it.
Did you see they finally put Blink Twice out? Because it was
Yes.
made by Amazon,
Oh,
Amazon Studios. But yeah, finally got Blink Twice out, and I was like, so other people can now be traumatized by this film. You text me and asked had I seen it. And
yeah.
I was like, I can go see it. So I wasn't doing nothing that day. I went to go see it. And I was like, why did Jay ask me to go see this? I think that thing there's some elements to that that's real. I do believe that they gave a very good warning. Um, I
Yeah.
think sometimes warnings can't be good enough. And sometimes you can tell me that you're about to explore subject matter that is traumatic and um I feel like not everything should be a movie just because you can make a movie about it. I think
Yeah.
that there are real victims of like Epstein Island and all this stuff type of stuff. And I don't think that it was entertaining as they probably thought that I'm pretty sure they thought they was cooking with that. And I didn't. It stuck with me in a negative way.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, I definitely didn't think it was a feel good movie for sure. But
Mm,
I thought the subject matter wasn't in capable hands. I think that she thought she was doing something, and the car had too much engine for her. She thought she was, driving a VW, and she was doing a, Ford Mustang or a 5.0, whatever. It was too much engine, and it was just messy. And I don't know. You got to pick what direction you're gonna have. And sometimes you have too much going on. I didn't understand. Yeah. It was just messy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't clean. I don't have to agree with what you're doing or what you're saying, but stick to that. But don't be all over the place where I don't know how to take it. Because in one part, it kind of seemed like the person that had no control was taken advantage of. The other part kind of seemed like, it's more of the person being the kind of person who would choose to be in that situation. Even when they have a second chance, they still do the same thing again. So it was just like, are you saying that it's the situation's fault or the person's fault? Or are you saying both? And if you're saying they're both at fault, then be clear on that. But it was just like I didn't know. And then you have the victim doing the same kind of moves that the aggressor would be doing. And then it's almost like so and then you choke the selfish route out by making sure you were good, but then the bigger picture would have been to take down the situation that was messy. But you didn't do that. You decided to, clean off the knife and use it for another day versus to turn the knife in and the dead body of the person who tried to kill people. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to do the right thing and have the person arrested, or you want to, take advantage of that person and move on with your life? It's like, what about everybody else? What about you know what I mean? Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah,
It was a lot
yeah,
going on, and I will say too, I didn't necessarily feel good watching it. And it's almost like I wish if you're gonna go there, you really gotta know what you're doing. Like I said, she had too much car, even though she'd probably be the right person to do it, but her skill set and how to nuance that kind of stuff. Because there's a fine line between like Tyler Perry and Spike Lee. They could touch on the same subject matters, but in the right hands, it's a Spike Lee joint. In the wrong hands, it's a Tyler Perry production. And it could be the same kind of thing, but the person picks this part out and leans on this. This person don't touch that part, and it's very delicate. And I just kind of wish it was something. And not saying that Get Out is simpler, but I wish it was more something like that that didn't have this big thing that you're touching on, and it's almost like a missed opportunity, and you kind of muddied up the even the concept of that kind of thing. To me,
yeah.
was it shot nice? Yeah, it was shot nice, but
Well, for that to be her her first project, I thought was fairly unique too.
yeah, it was a lot. But I thought it stepped on its own toes throughout the whole movie, and I didn't know how to feel about a lot of it. Some stuff I knew, okay, that's straight up crazy and wrong. That's kind of, but then some of the implications of it was just like, so that's how you deal with that. That's the choice that you're gonna choose with that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, sorry I brought that one up, but
No,
yeah, I was like, you know what? Let me re why it's on my mind. But
yeah,
there is real quick before I forget, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. It's just a recommendation I'm gonna give real quick.
okay.
It's a movie, and you may have seen it. Do you remember Mavis Beacon?
Well, that name sounds familiar.
Mavis Beacon was a typing program that we all learned how to type on in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, but mainly the 90s. So if you took a typing class in the 90s, you did
Yeah,
it on Mavis Beacon, right?
yeah,
So Mavis Beacon was they used a black model. So the avatar was a black woman, and the woman had acrylic nails and everything.
okay.
The majority of young Americans learned how to type using Mavis Beacon. And so most people learned how to type using this black woman.
Hmm.
This black woman taught majority of like like Americans my age. We learned how to type with Mavis Beacon. That was the typer. Like if you were in school in the 80s, you probably had a typewriter
Yeah.
in a typing class. We had Mavis Beacon
Oh,
from
okay.
like, and so it was the most sold educational software ever. up until like a certain point recently. So we're talking, Oregon Trail. When you think of those type of games, they used to be the original, the OGs.
Hmm.
So there's a documentary called Seeking Mavis Beacon. Uh, it's about a person who just, I think she may have grown up like in the 2000s and learned how to type on Mavis Beacon. And she pulls out her old, like her dad finds this old computer and it's got like, with the floppy, the Mavis Beacon floppy or the CD-ROM.
Yeah.
The thing about it is there's this nostalgic factor to it, but the film itself, you could tell they shot it during the pandemic. And this is
Oh.
one of my favorite styles of documentaries where the story is not really about finding Mavis Beacon. It's about finding Mavis Beacon. Like it's about the journey that the filmmakers go on and
Yeah.
trying to find Mavis Beacon. So they figure out who Mavis Beacon is. Like they're like, oh, okay, she was a model who worked at this store. Like they find out this backstory, and then they're like, well, we wonder did she ever really get paid because like her face is being used. So there's all these different factors that they're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But the journey that they go on, the reason why it resonated with me is because I've witnessed this happen in real life so many different times. And I think it's an important documentary to watch if you can stand a lot of chaos,
Okay.
but it's the chaos of what it means to make a documentary film.
Hmm.
It's the chaos of working in nonprofit sectors, like with when you're a black person and you're working around predominantly white people. Like
Hmm.
there's some scenes in there that's like, I just hit home right away. So yeah, the Seeking Mavis Beacon, really, really loved it. Very glad that I think it got workshopped in Sundance, if I'm not mistaken. But it's like
Okay.
really good documentary. You can find it on Hulu and it's like it's worth your time.
Okay.
Like I said, if you're at an age where you missed Mavis Beacon, you were out of school before Mavis Beacon was a thing, then you may not get the nostalgic factor. But as far as watching that particular generation of people go through the ups and downs of being young storytellers,
Yeah.
it's interesting. And then the other interesting thing is seeing the ingenuity of still making the film when it's not perfect,
Oh, okay.
making a film when you've got an interview shot in 1080 instead of 4K. We're
Okay.
so used to everyone's documentaries is shot in 4K now.
Yeah.
This, you could tell they did little things to try to hide that they had cell phone footage, that
Okay.
they had old footage that they had to figure a way to like, hey man, some people are going to watch this on big screen TVs.
Hmm.
How do we format this? And so it's a lot of chaos, but
Hmm.
it is also, and it's shot. The main subjects are working out of the Bay Area,
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
but eventually make their way to like Florida. So it's a lot of storyline going on in there, but it's good. It's a good watch. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Just Seeking Me Mavis Beacon is one of my recommendations.
Okay.
Um, that I just wanted to throw that out before I forget about it because we'll get to talking and
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, what was that thing I wanted to recommend?
No, that's dope. That's dope. What was that movie we were supposed to talk about? Where, what's the name of it? It was where you prepay for your tickets and you get these free movies and you go. You could go anytime you want to, one price.
Movie Pass, the Movie
Movie
Pass
Pass.
documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. I remember you told me about it and I checked it out and I really liked that a lot. That was a good
It
one.
was it was very frustrating to see this creative thing.
I
It's
wasn't
back.
surprised. I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, I think it took them years to build that the right way. And then it took a certain demographic a few months to kill something that it took these genius black men years. And they just sat there and reverse engineer. And they weren't even reverse engineered. That's being generous.
Right.
They just did what they do. They came and colonized it and stripped it of its resources and left it for dead. And then it ended up back in his hands.
And the sad part is it was a great idea, and just because of who they were, it didn't get the same kind of push and notoriety. That's the sad part. So they had to have a face or a cover or something else that's going to be more accepting so they could get in so it could happen. It's a shame that they couldn't just did it on their own with having a great idea and being able to, put in the work and work it out. That's the sad part. They should have just been able to do it on their own and they couldn't.
It was such a good idea that it's one of those things where you wish he could have walked into like Tyler Perry's office and said, "Hey, this is what we've got. Can you be an angel investor in this?" Or Oprah. It's one of those people that we know of that has that type of capital. Instead, he ended up having to hook up with hustlers, people who
Yes,
end up swindling him and ruin this beautiful thing. And it's so to the point where I still get after I remember after I watched that documentary, I went to the movie phone website because I found out that Black Man still is back, running it. And so I went to the Movie Pass website, signed up for the newsletter or for the, and, they send me offers, and I'm always on the edge of signing up.
me too.
I think I could trust the value of what Movie Pass brings. I think I have to evaluate my life in relationship to movies, right?
Okay.
And what's crazy is I'm like, yeah, I'm not consuming movies right now
Mm,
on the level of this this expenditure coming out. Like
okay.
if I had to put my movie pass up against my Sirius XM bill, I'm probably gonna keep XM in my car
Right.
because I'm just not gonna go that frequently just based off of I got a ton of streaming services at the house.
Yeah.
And I got them because our business, we have a business that people come into our salon every day, and we want to make sure that when you're in our salon or whether you're in our nonprofit, we want to make sure our kids and their parents, and we want to make sure that our clients, our adult clients too, have options on what they can watch.
Yeah.
We don't want you coming having to hold your phone the whole time. We want to be able to say, yeah, we got Peacock, we got Netflix, we got all these different options for you. So in turn, like I stayed looking up, hey, when is this gonna stream? Like I was the second off seeing Gladiator 2, and then somebody was like, dude, it's horrible. And I was like, all right. And then I looked it up and it was like, oh, it'll be streaming on Paramount like next week. Like or like, like next month. So like I'm good. I can wait.
Right.
Same thing with it was a few good movies that I was like, yeah, I'll wait till they come.
Right. I
Like
get
I
it.
was gonna go see Deadpool Wolverine again, and then they showed me the date that it was coming out, and I was like, oh, I will wait.
Yeah.
Um, the one movie that I didn't want to wait for, and I'm glad I didn't because I think it's still not out. And I was glad that I did go pay and see a while back was and I think we talked about this, was the Pharrell Lego documentary.
No, I wanted to see it in the theater, but by the time I got to go, it was already gone.
It's worth the watch. It's a good documentary. If it was just a straight up documentary, it needed to be on TV, right?
Mhm.
Like, and we would have forgot about it by now, right? But since it was done in Lego,
Yeah.
it made it more beautiful. It put a lot of nuance. Like it created something to his story. It put a layer to his story that I was proud of him and the work that he's doing and the creativity of who he is. And you could see how he's pulled in different directions with his moral compass in different ways. And it made him more relatable. And I think it spoke a little bit to his personality to make it a Lego movie.
Yeah.
Um, I do know that it was heavily criticized and not liked, but it
Oh,
is what it is. It
yeah.
wasn't supposed to be like Lego Batman.
Right.
Please don't take your kids. I would say take your kid if you've got an older kid who's into music or who's into some sort of art or craft themselves, because it is a resiliency story.
Okay.
It is a story of teaching you how, he talks about how he wrote like Rump Shaker and he thought that was going to be his big break. And then like Teddy wrote him a check for 10,000 and he was like, I'm rich, and Rump Shaker probably made Teddy millions of dollars.
Mhm.
And, he got a chance to just like be in the video and he got 10,000 and that wasn't even like the beginning of his career.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You got a chance
uh,
to kind of blow up and rip off Marvin Gaye and then sue his family before they get a chance to sue him.
yeah. And And his expl which of course the documentary doesn't explain that at all.
Of course
But
they're not.
yeah. And he has his explanations, and everybody has their explanations on different ways of like this, that, and other. And it's like, yeah, that's a deeper story in itself.
Yeah.
Because everybody's kind of wrong in that situation. That was one of those movies that I was like, yeah, this one, if we would have talked about it when it was out, that
Yeah.
definitely would have been a recommendation of mine
Okay.
for people to head into the movie theaters to go see.
I want to check that out. Matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned it because I don't even know if it's streaming. It should be streaming at this point, but I haven't seen it pop up on
I,
anything.
the only thing I saw it pop up on was I was on Amazon the other day, and it was like, but it was to rent, and I was just like, at
Oh,
some
okay.
point this has got to come
Yeah.
out.
At least the
It's for
Netflix
like
or something.
it's like when I called you or not called you, but one of the last things I texted you about was like CNN's Never Too Much, Luther documentary.
First, why is it on CNN? And two, like I can't catch that thing to save my life, and I don't
It
know what the deal is with that.
So ultimately they gave it a release around the country one weekend only, right?
Yes.
With the intention of whetting people's appetite and getting critics and people into the theater to see it so that they could release it on New Year's Eve.
Right.
They released it on New Year's Eve, but the problem that took place was there was a tragedy that took place with the fires. We've had so many different things take place,
Yeah.
but there was a tragedy. Was it the fires?
Not the California fires. That's no.
I want to say the first set of fires or something. No,
Really? It's supposed to come out right after Christmas, right? Or around
it
the
was
end.
supposed to come out New Year's Eve. Something
Right.
happened, some tragedy. It was a shooting.
Mm.
Jesus, it's so sad that we live in a society now where we can't remember or keep up with the natural disasters and
Because so much
tragedies.
going on.
But there was a tragedy and
But
that
what?
took place.
But what does that have to do with just releasing it on CNN though?
But so point is, it was always set to be released on CNN that day. It did release, but there was a lot of so I watched it,
Okay.
and what I did was I set it the DVR to that. Then when I went back to watch it later,
Yeah.
they had pushed it where it wasn't on the DVR. So I watched like the first few minutes. I was like, oh,
What?
great. And I ended up pushing it for coverage of this, whatever that tragedy was.
Oh, okay.
So ultimately, you either had to have, so if you didn't catch it that first night on CNN, it disappeared and then it showed up on demand. So it's on demand for free on
Okay.
CNN, or you can catch it on OWN for free if you got like OWN, if you got the OWN app or like have access to OWN through your provider.
Huh.
So those are the ways that you can watch it is on demand,
Okay.
or if CNN is replaying it, you just set your DVR to record the next time it plays it. So it's a good documentary. Maybe next time I'll wait till you get a chance to see it
Okay.
so we can talk about it because it does cover Luther in a way where it gives dignity to Luther
Good. He deserves that.
and it gives dignity and it teaches us. I think the casual fan who knows some things about Luther, they know some things, but it reminds even the most casual fan. I think the people who have known, oh, Luther did these things in the 70s. Oh, Luther did these things in the early 80s. You didn't forgot about him. And it reminds you that, oh, Luther was that dude.
Yeah.
And just without, and it's a documentary, so it's not like I'm giving up too much,
No, no.
but it's like there's this scene in it where someone kind of says in an interview, like that they mentioned it like he did like he had 4 albums in a row that went platinum.
Hmm.
Like, and it's just like that's an unheard of thing of having someone who put out these hit albums, but because of his weight, society never put him in this category when he had numbers that like, comparable to any other R&B star
So,
of that era.
so society or the record company? Because I think we love them either way.
Well, I think what ultimately happened was Black America embraced his
Yeah.
voice, but did not embrace Luther. And it was evident in different ways that like Luther was always the butt of the joke. Luther was always kind of like the big friend. And then there's portions of like you can see where like Eddie Murphy and I think it was Raw or Delirious one on where he was like, if you can sing, you can get a woman. Because he was like, because Luther, a big Kentucky Fried Chicken eating, mother lover and blah, blah, blah. And then so Luther, trying to be a good sport, the next time he was at a concert and he found out Eddie was there,
Yeah.
he goes and he sings the Kentucky Fried Chicken theme song and brings out a big bucket of chicken.
Now I
And
seen that out of context 'cause I didn't know that Eddie made okay, that's
yeah, like,
funny. Because I remember
yeah,
them doing that. 'Cause I thought, oh, he's pretty humble to be this big star now, and he's still not hiding from doing commercials. So I didn't know. Okay, that's neat.
no, so he hit a point where, so Luther, and you'll find this out through the documentary, was not just a guy doing commercials. Luther was the guy for commercials
Yeah.
at one point, whether he was the one writing them, composing them, or you're just doing the whole gigs himself or whatever. Like the whole thing. He was that guy. And he
Mhm.
had the advertisement world on lock for a minute there.
Mhm.
And so when he said, okay, enough of this, but he did enough within that world to have made a name for himself where he could have been like someone we would have been like, remember that voice or remember that guy?
Mhm.
And so once he focused on the music, his background work, his background singing and his jingle singing in itself was a career that was worth the documentary. But
Wow.
once he converted over and started doing the thing that he does best, the thing we know him for, he
Yeah.
became Luther. But yeah, people made fun of him. People always compared him and Oprah, there's a story Oprah tells where when she lost weight, how people will walk up to her and say things like, "You're just gonna lose it. You're just gonna gain it back again, like Luther."
Yeah, because
And
they
so,
would do diets together. I remember they do the water diet or whatever. I remember them actually getting together, talking about, and they would lose weight together and stuff like that.
and, there is another documentary on Max right now. It's a docu-series about the different like the TV, the moments that the television moments that shaped our world.
Okay.
I think that's actually the name of it. And there's an episode of that docu-series around the Oprah weight loss special about the time she came out with the cart with the crate of fat or the
Yeah, the big
wagon of
old
fat.
yeah.
And that was one of the most polarizing episodes of any show ever. One of the
Wow.
most watched, rewatched, and heavily talked about episodes because it started a weight loss trend in America like no other before. And but the effect that that had on her, because she gained it again.
Hmm.
And Luther went through the same thing. I, as a human being, identify with that just because, like, 7 years ago, I was 100 pounds lighter. And you might, hook up with me 6 months from now and I've lost it all again.
Yeah.
So I've always fluctuated myself.
Oh,
So it's a part of, not everyone has that thing. And, we live in this age with Ozempic and all these other things now. And so the conversations are a little bit different. But Luther and Oprah, very talented, probably more talented in their fields than anybody was at that time,
hmm,
are still associated with something that has nothing to do with their talents.
right.
People associate them with their size for no reason because it was not affiliated with their talent. Um, And I think in Luther's case, his size held him back. Black people viewed him as being very talented, but not a sex symbol. And it had nothing to do, and this was the 80s, and it had nothing to do with homosexuality because we still did not have gaydar, so to speak, in that particular way. People were still shocked that Elton John was gay. Like, so, like, it just wasn't part of our lex. Like, we didn't get it like that then.
Even when I was young, I remember folks kind of talking about like Luther took his mom to the Grammys and stuff, or his friend. You know what I mean? So we kind of but it wasn't a thing that people, like I said, it's amazing how growing up you knew folks that were gay or whatever, and it didn't really kind of matter like that. Like everybody got teased for whatever, but they were family and friends and stuff. And I don't remember not playing with a friend because they were gay or giving a chick a hard time that she's a B girl and she had a pink Adidas suit, but she was hard like a dude and had her little curl and stuff. You always had friends and family folks that was kind of like that, so it's kind of interesting some of that stuff. Yeah, I got definitely
But
gotta watch it because I'm
he
just kind of
definitely got,
curious.
and they keep Luther's dignity about his personal life. And I
Yeah,
think that's the thing that I thought was beautiful about the film is that Luther was a very private man in real life.
right.
And so they did the documentary as though Luther was still alive.
That's
And
fair.
so there was nothing. So if you're looking to watch it as a person who might be listening to us talk that hadn't watched it yet, if
Mm,
you're looking to watch it thinking that they're going to mention anything salacious about his personal life, they don't. And I think, and they do it intentionally because they gave you what Luther wanted you to have, and they respected that. And there's a lot of clowns that if you go on the internet now, that then sat down with that culture vulture, DJ Vlad and all these other people will be
yeah.
happy to tell you different stuff or chasing a little bit of clout about Luther and all these other different people.
Hmm.
That's not what this is. And none of those clowns are a part of this. These are people who actually love Luther and honor him the
Yeah.
entire time. There is a little bit of shade in it, and I don't want to give that up because that is an entertaining factor. Maybe
Yeah.
we can talk about it next time because there is some shade that they throw at a particular star that I thought
Okay.
was kind of fun.
Okay. I always thought Luther was dope. And I guess it's kind of funny too when it comes to this kind of stuff because you do have it where, okay, the sex symbol thing or how people look and all this other kind of stuff, but then also, say people did have issues with that kind of thing, they were still buying his music and stuff, right? It's because sometimes you can't control, like, you're famous, but you want everybody to love you. You can't control that part, but you might be there
Right.
for something, being able to, play basketball well. So it's no guarantee that you're gonna get both. You might get love for your skill set, and people hate you for everything else. And so some of that, it just kind of goes along. It's unfortunate, but some of it just kind of goes along with the job. And so, either you turn it off or you I don't know. And some people implode by it. So it's just interesting how that stuff is kind of connected. And like I said, you can't control all of it. But I always been a fan of Luther. I would hear stories about how he wouldn't get along sometimes on tour with In Vogue. And I'm like, who wouldn't love In Vogue? Or him just kind of, you
They talk
know.
about that. That actually,
Oh, for real?
yeah, there's an explanation,
Because I
an
love In
explanation
Vogue. I'm
given
like,
about it. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. So I would hear stuff like that, and he have his like so-called diva moments and stuff with different singers and stuff, and that clip that they showed him and Mariah Carey sing, not Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, and they're kind of out singing each other or whatever. So he just seemed very playful and just had a command. Because right now you can still watch his videos of his concerts and stuff, and it's just the sound, the quality of his voice and stuff like that. He was just yeah, yeah. But he's definitely missed, and I can't wait to see that elusive movie. At least it's been elusive for me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
You're not the only one. My sister, same thing with my sister. She's like, hey, she's about ready for me to stream it to her through the computer or something. Like she's like, she can't find it anywhere. She's ready to watch it. So
Yeah, yeah. Wanted to touch with you on that Tyson Jake Paul fight.
I don't know. You don't want to touch on that. Like I put to you like this about that, and it's been a while since it's happened,
I know.
but I thought I have particular feelings about without being overly serious about something that could be just a jovial conversation.
Yeah.
We have to be careful how we are complicit with our own oppression. And yes,
Mm,
that is
mm,
just
mm,
all
mm.
fun and it's just fun or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that we can consume. Yeah, there's some things that we've always heard. There's always the conservative black person who's like, don't do this, don't do this. And we don't listen to them because we do know that a lot of times they tell us don't do stuff because they're actually preaching out of a space of their own, like whitewashed colonist mindset on what's good, what's pure, whatever, right?
Okay.
But then there are some things that are innate to our soul. And majority of the black people I am in my life that are around, they were like, this is wrong, and we don't like it. No one wanted to see one of our legends fight this boy And what pisses me off is that we don't live in an elder protected society. Now, I'm not saying he's elderly, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I get it. Mike Tyson did that. Those were choices, but there was so much clownery behind it, like all the way to the point that this man showed. It was almost like you said, I'm here for a fight, but I got a little bit of this Tyler Perry. Like this man's butt cheeks was out.
Right.
Like the dignity of him and his, it almost makes me want to cry a little bit because this is Iron Mike Tyson.
Exactly.
And it doesn't make me feel good. It's not about, oh, he lost. I never thought he would win. He's a older man who had no business out there. It had everything to do with why we can't protect him. Why come we can't protect our elders in this particular, like now you can't protect a person who don't want to be protected. So let
Right.
me put this out there. You've got your people who will always and forever be complicit with their own oppression. And it's for their own political agendas and gains, whether it's through them thinking that they're somehow keeping good with Jesus because they feel like they gotta see the world through a particular scope. If it could be some people who are thinking that they're keeping their money safe. There's
Right.
some people who make decisions that are just bad for black and brown people. And when you choose to fight one of the Paul brothers and you're getting in bed with individuals who are choosing to target, and you can say it's all fun and jest or whatever. They're choosing, they're picking and choosing, and they're doing things to pull at the moral fiber of who we are and the dignity that we have. So that when people come along and say, there is no more Black History Month, you already can say, yeah, why should it be? Because our heroes will always be denigrated. When you start having, and I know we're talking about the Jake Paul fight, but when we start accepting, yes, our leaders do have flaws, but now we're starting to allow the narratives of the flaws of our leaders
Right.
to be what we're leading with
Right.
instead of the work that was done. So in the case of Mike Tyson, he's Iron Mike Tyson,
Right.
which only work that he's ever done that was important for us and for like his mark on society was he took pain that was designed to kill him
Right.
and he turned it into triumph. That's his story. That's the narrative. That's what we roll with, right?
Right.
He found peace with what he did with the pigeons. He found peace with the what, but when he got in that ring, he turned all that pain that was supposed to kill him into profit, into something, and it gave us something to aspire to, right?
Right.
Not everybody is blessed with the opportunity to turn their pain into some sort of passion and to let it manifest into something as great as what his career was. Instead, what everything, the end story is, it's like still get up on the auction block at the end of the day. And it's disheartening. It was disgusting. Him having to bite, like him biting on and pulling on the glove,
So you want to kill that
everything,
kid?
all of that stuff was, and here, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not saying this to make it political, to talk about politics. I don't want to go down a political conversation, but it's like I liken it to in 2016, Snoop Dogg saying, which one of you gonna get out there and perform for Donald Trump? And then fast forward to Donald Trump at the end of his presidency, letting known drug dealer, Harry O out, and then Snoop Dogg saying he ain't ever did, Trump ain't ever did nothing negative against me, ain't never did nothing bad for me. Like in fact, he let the homie out. Because yeah, he let out the drug dealer who funded Death Row Records. So that means oh, you for sale now then. That means your pattern of behavior is a woman and it's F Donald Trump because you could see where he's not good for our culture, where he's gonna implement some white supremacy and this, that, and other. That's how you felt in 2016. But then they came with a little bit of crypto money, and now you don't feel that way. So why don't you give Chrisette Michelle her career back? Because you calling people who were gonna be complicit with or not even say complicit, just not to insult people who choose to vote that way. Chris said Michelle didn't choose to vote that way. She just chose to take
Well,
up
she
that job.
because she was an entertainer being an entertainer.
Right. And patriarchy played every part in that because it didn't ruin Travis Green's career. It didn't ruin other people's career who's done it. And it's not going to ruin Nelly and it's not going to ruin Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
It's not going to do anything to them, but it did ruin this black woman. And so when you hear me talk, majority of times I am going to always talk about the things that, let's talk about it, the realness of how patriarchy does go hand in hand with white supremacy. It is one of the number one tools that was used, and it's continuously stays in place within the Black community as a way of dividing and keeping us divided, so that we're not honoring the women in our community, that we're not looking to them in a particular way, and it keeps them not looking back because the love respect cycle is broken. So these things, when I see, yeah, we started off this conversation with Mike Tyson, and then I sprinkled in a little bit of when you start, talking about Snoop Dogg, but
Yeah.
when you start talking about your willingness to take a check over anything, then you're talking about being complicit with your own oppression, which is fine if it was interpersonal, but there's always repercussions for other people. And here's the thing, Angela Davis said it, and other people said our ancestors is a part of our soul. You can be fine and be perched on your righteous stance, but if they come for me at night, they're coming for you in the morning. And
Hmm.
it's a guarantee. So yeah, you may want to be the outlier who votes different and you want to think different, and that's fine. Be that. But understand your day will come. And I don't care when you hop over, understand that the revolution can't be televised. It won't be televised. And we will have to fight and we will have to do some things in order to make a new day for us,
Right.
or we're going to have to die trying.
Right.
Now, at some point, it's going to have to affect you in a particular way. But there are some people within our community that have celebrity status that we need to start understanding. When I make this statement that the revolution will not be televised, I am not repeating the words of Gil Scott Heron. What I am talking about is something that is innate to every person's soul who is tired right now.
Hmm.
It's the understanding that these clowns that we put up in front of in these TVs, that's what they are. They are propped up. They've been given a certain level of money and attention, and in these pulpits, and they have been told to repeat a particular rhetoric in order for them to survive and to separate them from the rest of us. The rest of us will survive. We will persevere, and I do believe God is on our side, and I do believe we're gonna be all right, and we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
That is the heart of even the this is the reason why, like, when the conversations I had with young people this summer when I was teaching about, like, even the Kendrick beef, there is a heart behind they not like us.
Yeah.
It's not America versus Canada.
No.
There's a heart that people are missing, that it's like those clowns that take that money and take them awards and they think that life got to be about the party. There comes a time when it get real. And when it gets
Mhm.
real, what we gonna do? And the truth of the matter is, we can't talk about that. That ain't a conversation for the podcast. That's a conversation where, oh, did you see how Drew was moving? Did you see what Drew did? That's the revolution. It's
Mhm.
not gonna be Drew telling you what to do because Drew likes to hear the sound of his voice.
No, it doesn't. That's
And
not how that
so,
works. Yeah.
yeah, that Mike Tyson thing brought tears to my eyes and it burned my a hole in my soul because I don't know what we're going to do as a people. We're in trouble. And
Yeah.
we've been in trouble for a while. And part of it is the celebrity culture and who we allow in. And I ain't gonna lie, I preach the gospel. I understand. I preach an uncolonized gospel, but we got to get our stuff together because we are making celebrities out of pastors too. Snoop dropped a gospel tape a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We can't hide behind the Jesus thing either, man. We're gonna have to figure it out. Like we need to be guided by Jesus, but we can't hide behind old church religion either.
But this kind of goes back to what Malcolm X said about, look at our leaders. Our leaders are entertainers, they're dancers, they're singers, they're
Hmm. Exactly.
sports stars and stuff. So he said it back then, and it was the truth. It's the truth. I'll say it like this, and as unfortunate as it is to see this dismantling of our images of our quote unquote heroes or the people we look up to, as much as that hurts, I feel that is needed because we need something to snap us out of what we're seeing, the spells that we're under, and the interpretation that we're having, and the perspective that we're having that's all wrong. You know, even though it hurts, underneath it is truth of what the situation is and our place in it. Now, did I want to see Snoop say some mess like that? No. But did it need to be seen so the right people will see it and understand, like, hey, this guy's a hypocrite. I love him, but what's up with that then? We kind of need that, even though, like I said, a simple beef between two rappers. No, it was an unveiling. Cat making bad jokes about people. No, it was an unveiling. All this stuff, it's going to be people falling, and you got to know what you are dealing with. And everything can't be up there. But the stuff that is true, real, and supposed to be there, it'll stand and be unfazed. The stuff that's paper thin, and we just need the evidence to show that's what it was, so we could feel comfortable knocking it down. We need that too. And so it's just a very interesting time, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt because anytime that lie has to go away that comforts you for all those years and kept you warm, it gets cold when it has to go. But you get a tougher skin, you get used to the temperature, and you acclimate, and
Yeah.
you're better and stronger because of it. So we got to tear down a little muscle to build some new muscle. And like I said, it's not pretty. And we're seeing a lot of truths and a lot of things that we thought was one thing becoming something else. And you hate to see it happen because they share your face. You hate to see it.
I think back to something you just briefly alluded to was like Cat Williams has kind of continued his. I'm not a fan. Like I
I
think
know.
that there's a facade behind him being a truth teller, right? You can't be a truth teller with a lie. So take that for what it is. But Jamie Foxx recently did his special, and Cat was like, I still don't know what happened. Like, and makes fun of it. And he's like, it was just an hour of you talking around this thing. He's like, we still don't know what happened. He was like, I love Jamie. I just don't like Jamie's clone.
Clone.
Right.
Right.
And just to keep the joke going,
Yeah.
of what it is. Jamie Foxx don't owe me an explanation about anything, right?
Yeah.
I watched this special. It resonated with me because my father is a massive stroke, not a survivor on the level of Jamie Foxx. My father sits in a corner of a care facility and he can't walk, talk, or do anything. But my father was discovered right away. But the difference was my father did not have the same care team and the money that Jamie Foxx had.
Right.
And so when I hear Jamie Foxx say that he had a stroke, whether it was brought on through a fentanyl overdose or whether it was through this, that, and other, he perfectly described what the recovery was for a person with a stroke. I believe the man had a stroke. It is what it is. He doesn't owe me an explanation whether it was a drug overdose or whether it
Right.
was a stroke. So what's your point, Cat? Right? The point I'm getting at is there's an entertainment value to everything, right? Does Jamie need to get up and do a song and a dance for us? No. Jamie just got to do better in his life if he chooses to, or if he doesn't.
He's giving up white
We
women, so that's a big deal.
He did say he wasn't gonna do it, and then he said just in public. Like that was hilarious because the funny thing is they're gonna be who they are,
Yeah.
and they whether it's Cat with his false self-righteousness or whether it's Jamie with the false humility of let me just tell y'all what happened and then didn't tell us what happened, or
Yeah.
whether it's Dave Chappelle eloquently making us laugh in the hardest times, like because his SNL monologue was one that was like recently that was like, here he goes again. I can disagree with a lot of who he is, but
Yeah.
I be danged, he shows up every time and he
Yeah.
gets me when I need it. And he is who we would need to call on when it's like, hey, we got a serious thing going on. Southern California being on fire like that. And they found a way to make us laugh in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And and then there are people who knew what was and could feel it was palatable of what was coming down the pike. for a lot of us who are affected by some of the sweeping changes that we're seeing in the country.
Yeah.
Some of us are affected more directly. Like I directly am family with people who are DACA citizens, and I don't know if they're going to make it home all the time.
Right.
That's scary. I don't know if my black son's going to make it home, but I do know he has a better chance than my son-in-law, who has to carry papers that I know ICE is going to rip up just because they have an agenda to do that. I knew that, like, so Dave, in the face of that, I run a nonprofit that is that is a DEI nonprofit. My livelihood is out the window. My sister is disabled. When you freeze Section 8 and you tell them that that type of funding ain't come, my sister's like, am I gonna live under a bridge soon? Like, some of us are screwed. Other people, they're good because they protected their agenda with their vote. And so they're coming for me right now. They'll be for you in the morning though. And it'll be, and you'll figure it out. And we'll lead the way like we always do. But I think it's too serious. We have people like Elon and other people who are about to start leading us in directions we don't want to go
Hmm.
because it's the interest of the upper 1%. We got to be careful, man. Like, and not pay attention to the clowns all the time. I'm not
Right.
saying we got to be dead serious, but if our clowns, and I'm not referring to just black people, I'm especially not referring to just black people, but it's like who we choose to let entertain us, they need to go ahead and have a higher brow. They need to be sensitive to the plight of their audience. And it can't just be this anymore because I don't need you to just reveal truth. You can reveal truth and so yeah, I what is that doing for me? Like just because you got to it first and you told me, like I know several real life ditties, like that ain't never gonna probably see jail.
Right.
And the police know that they ditties, but they don't care. Like people got uncles sitting at the table that's really ditties of the family.
It's not like Diddy went down for what he allegedly did. It was something else going on with that. And we know that. We know the cops know where all the bad guys are because they drive by them and they pull you over for a ticket. So we know the game.
That is hilarious. I've been pulled over
So,
and looked over at people selling dope like
yeah. So
like
we know that's how that goes. Like I said, this is a good time for things with all the stuff coming up. And like you said, people's taste in whatever art, comedy, music, or whatever, if it ain't right, if it ain't the vibe of the people, the majority of the people, it will, fade away. It will get uprooted. That's just how that goes. Sometimes we have control over it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're in a majority that wants the thing, and sometimes we're not. But that's how things get weeded.
did you enjoy the Jamie Foxx thing? Did you watch it at all?
I did. I watched it when it first came out. I didn't want to wait on it 'cause I wanted to see when he joked around and said, y'all think that did he try to kill me, or he made a joke about that. I like Jamie Foxx. I think he's a mixed bag. I think he got a lot going on. Him, I don't know. But as far as his comedy, yeah, he's very funny. As far as his acting, yeah, he's very talented. As far as his music, I got his albums. So, he's dope. But something about Jamie is just very, I don't know. I just with all the stuff that he does and all the stuff I like and support by him, if I thought about comedians, he wouldn't be on my, Mount Rushmore necessarily, even though I could say
Yeah.
he's consistently funny. I will say with that show, I didn't know if to laugh or cry. I did a little bit of both. I did a little
And I
bit of
don't
both.
yeah.
And it was
It
almost
wasn't a
too much
comedy
just
special.
right. It was almost too much going on. And then it was
Yeah.
a talent show and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it was all done well, as usual, but it was just too much. And sometimes that's the funny thing. Something could be extra salty and you know it, or it could be extra sweet and you know it. And if it's both, it cancels each other out. So it's salty and sweet, but you can't tell because they're canceling each other out. It canceled itself out because it was very heartbreaking and encouraging and powerful, and it was funny and all that stuff. I couldn't, it was just like when you can't choose which way to run, you just stand still, right? And
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to feel about it. I felt everything. And for that, it made the whole experience kind of hazy for me. Even though I know what happened, I know what was said, I know the songs he did, I know the people that he, shouted out in the audience. I saw how he talked about Atlanta and what they did for him, and how, and then the stuff with his sister and his daughter and stuff like that, and the people protecting him and stuff. It was just it was a lot of stuff in there that was so beautiful. But like I said, it was just hard to digest because it was just so much in it. But when he was telling stories and stuff and was just kind of breaking down, it just broke my heart. And not because of what necessarily happened to him, but just the stuff that he had to. I guess it was the stuff that happened to him, but just the way he dealt with it and how he came from it, and just how that changes a person. And sometimes somebody walk around act like nothing's wrong, and something's wrong, and you got the people who wear it on their shoulders. And for somebody who always got this kind of veneer of untouchable, always life of the party, he'll make you happy, even though everybody's sad. He'll make sure he wasn't hiding it well, and that was so powerful to see with him because you never see him out of sorts. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to know he had a bad day if he was having one. And so for him to share those stories, and you could see him breaking down with those stories, and
Yeah.
it was powerful to see. It's like seeing your dad cry or something, and
Yeah.
if you never
It's
seen him cry before, it's like if they're trembling and getting choked up, it was serious.
it's
And
unpalatable.
and for that, it just touched you different. So I thought it was a wonderful thing. I haven't rewatched it yet, probably because I don't know if I want that heaviness all on me or whatnot, or maybe I'll dissect it better and I can laugh more at the funny parts and lean into the deep stuff. But
Is it rewatch worthy though? I don't think it is.
I'll just do it for clarification, just to make sure I got everything out of it. That because, like I said, I got so much stuff going on when I was watching it. I honestly can't say that I saw like, oh, that was a person on that corner right there, and that person wearing
Yeah.
a red shirt. Like I know I missed nuances because the emotional part was so heavy for
So
me.
one of the things that I actually ran across was a handful of people who, and this was a religious crowd that I got this from, where they
Okay.
weren't in appreciation with Jamie's generalities of his conversation with God. Like he mentions he has a conversation with God, but he cusses with
Mhm.
God. Then, at one point he comes out and he says, Atlanta, you saved me. And right away, those people's like, no, only God saved you. The over churchiness of like trying to make someone else's story sound like the way you want it to sound in order for you to feel guilt free for enjoying this. Because, this man's expression of how he chooses to get on Netflix is going to be different than if he was in the church hall. He may say and sing and do things a little bit different, but Netflix is going to cut it a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? And but he did face a tiny, in one amongst the sector of his main consumers, but he did face a little bit of backlash behind people saying you can't really ride the fence kind of thing of like, this felt like you were saying that God saved you and you're gonna ride with God, but not really. And it's like, get out that man's business. We don't owe him anything. He didn't go out and work the clubs for 2 months and gave us, so it wasn't a comedy special. So he didn't give us set material. He put together what he wanted to tell us and he told us. So it wasn't a comedy special. It was just him standing up, giving a testimony, the using the talents and the skills and the gifts that he has as a storyteller, a musician, as a comedian.
I wouldn't hold him to the same standards as I would like Kirk Franklin. Snoop Dogg, like you said, did a gospel album. There's a lot of people who, yeah, if people get upset about that, it's equivalent to people that did, a rap album talking all this mess and they want to thank God first. And that's always just been the thing. And if you're
Some of
looking
my,
for some church
yeah,
stuff, go to church. Don't expect to
exactly.
find it on Netflix by a comedian who be cursing and cutting up and
Yeah. Stay out their business. Yeah, stay
right.
out the world's. This is one of my favorite words. Yeah, stay out the world's business.
Yeah.
And you'll be all right.
Yeah. So, but for the most part, it was just a lot going on. But I did really enjoy it. Will I watch it again? Yeah, probably to just to make sure I didn't miss anything. it was heavy and where I didn't expect it to be heavy. It was extra light on stuff that I was hoping he would dig into, but I kind of knew on Netflix for sure he wasn't going to be saying too much. Um, but what you said about the church folks maybe feeling the ways about it, I can understand that. But he's working that crowd just like he's trying to get some feedback from the women when he's saying he's going to stop dating white women and stuff like that. So, you know, Jamie seemed like he always had good black women around him, and yet he chose to date who he wants to date, and that's just how that goes, and it's fine or whatnot. So he was just being that agitator that he is, doing his thing. And I thought it was kind of funny that he did bring up Cat Williams and that kind of stuff, and his impression of Cat Williams was spot on, and funny. So I don't know what's between them two guys, but they seem to have this little back and forth thing, and it is what it is. It's just folks being folks. But yeah. So something that came up that I saw, and even though I thought it was kind of a big deal, it seemed like it was kind of quiet. But then people were kind of talking about it, but not really. And it had something to do with Marvel and Marvel letting go Nate Moore. And
Did they let him go or did he just go his own way?
the way I saw it and heard it was they let him go. But well, they're saying his own way, but they let him go. He's producer of the Internals and all that stuff, right? And Black
Yeah,
Panther and all that
right.
stuff.
Yeah, and I know that they said that the Black Panther 3 is going to be he's
The
going to
last
still
one,
do that
yeah, that's the
project.
last one he's going to be a part of.
I'm happy for him
Okay.
in the sense of this. One, I'm not going to lie because I'm not that big of an industry head in that way. Black Panther is how I know who he is,
Yeah.
right? So I can't pretend like I knew who he was before that. Then once I became aware of who he was and what he brings to the projects, that day is kind of has passed.
Yes.
And I opposed to him being getting his reputation tarnished. Go ahead and go. And I hope that he goes and ventures into something different. I don't want to see him go over to DC. Like I want to see him venture into his own thing and do something. I just want to see him produce something different. It's interesting because I didn't read into it too much. I read one little like Deadspin or something article, and
Yeah.
it was generality and the way he's always carried himself. I believe that he would be in control of his choice to leave.
Okay.
But that's my own opinion. But when I think about it, if you present a case or something, I could easily see where he doesn't fit with what they want to do in the future. As it tied into our earlier conversation, as we blended together, does some of these projects not working out? How many of these projects was he a part of not worked out? Was he a part of the Blade project?
I'm not for sure, but I know he's part of Eternals, I believe. Because I think he said that he got brought into it for like a diversity program with Marvel, and Kevin brought him in, or something like it was part. He was part of that
Yo,
whole
so is
thing.
he, you think he's a part of like what all these major companies are doing by like their sacrifice to the gods by throwing out all of their DEI stuff and like they're like that's Marvel's way of saying, "Hey, we're getting rid of our DEI thing too." Like, you know how like
I don't know.
you know how like
Um,
Walmart and Target and all these people are just stepping up and saying, "We're getting rid of DEI." And is this Marvel's way of saying, wait, we're getting rid of our one lefty
I
hire
don't know. Or like you
also?
said, he just wanted to leave on his own accord. But I have a sneaky suspicion that wasn't the case. He worked on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. He's a producer on Eternals. He was a producer on Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show, the original Black Panther movie, Captain America: Civil War, executive producer. Yeah. So the main one he produced, because executive producer just kind of seemed like that's just a name thing. But Eternals and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, those two he was the actual producer on. And I know
It's
those
a
had a hard time, but
it's a
whatever.
decent run. I
Yeah.
mean, the idea behind Eternals, let me tell you, let me tread carefully with this, intentionally careful, because I don't want to mix my words and sound like I'm being rude or mean. Eternals would have been a good movie had they had taken casting a little bit more seriously to me, or not even so much casting, it's like I get what they were trying to do. It just felt like a fun idea, and it didn't feel like I didn't read canon, but I did when I found out it was coming out. I did go out and get a few of the books, and the few books that I read, I was like, yo, feels like you should have stuck with what the comics were instead of
Yeah.
trying to create this, instead of
Diversity.
trying to, yeah, instead of trying to create this thing that appeases the market. And at that point, we had enough. I think this is what happens when you misinterpret the Black Panther effect. The Black Panther effect, which created a lot of Comicsgate people who stepped up on the scene and started saying you're falsely putting in diversity, and you're ruining these comics and you're doing this stuff because Black Panther was successful. And it's like, well, hold on. In some cases, we're putting this in there because Black people are now writing some of this stuff and they're choosing to represent themselves in it. When Ewing writes something, my friend David writes something, even Brian, who is writing something who has Black children, these are all writers who, like have something going on in their life where this is an actual realistic depiction of how they see the world and the scope of how they see the world. Marvel was very guilty of trying to plug away at different portions of the culture that wasn't checking for them. And that movie could have been better. I do feel like, and it's the reason why I tread lightly because I'd never want to be on the side of agreeing with Comicsgate people because they've done more harm to us in our communities. And I do not want to ever sound like I'm on the side of saying like, because right is right, I get it. But it's like on the same token, nah, chump, you stay over there with that nonsense. I'm not gonna repeat that rhetoric because it's dangerous to us. Should they have movies with diversity in it? Yes. Do we live in a racist society that insists that we should have to be intentional about it? Yes, we do have to be intentional. Was that a bad movie because of diversity? Yes. Like all those things can be true.
Yeah. When they talk about the new lineup for the Avengers a few years ago, I think I showed you the image of it, and I'm like, we're in trouble. I knew it was going to be in trouble already. And sometimes I think that if it's not a natural progression and you are just trying to fill in spaces, it could turn out bad. And I think that the truth is, if people are going to complain about something and they're blaming a reason for it to be bad, at some point, you got to be like, is it good? Is it good? It's almost easier to say, like, hey, you're just being an ass because this is great on this, and you just don't want to like it because this is on there. Versus they feel how they feel about it and it's bad and the stuff that they're saying is true. Sometimes it's that too. So I would always be hoping that you make a good thing and make him look silly for saying it for something that's perfectly fine. Like, did I like She Hulk? No. I didn't think it was written well. And I think that they didn't like the audience, and it wasn't even in a funny kind of way. I think that they were, people who didn't like I guess, fanboys. And I'm talking about they lumping everybody together. And it's almost like, don't use our own tool to hurt us. But, it is what it is. Did I like Miss Marvel? I thought that was a fun show. I like the community. I like her family. She was, matter of fact, when the Kamala Khan was on the Marvels movie, I didn't expect her to like her the best. She was my favorite character on there. She was the heart of the whole thing. Even though I was going for Rambo, but Kamala, she was the one I really loved in that movie and that TV show. So I'm just like, just make the shows good. Eternals, I don't think that one was the right director for it, and I think they should have a different story. Or maybe I don't know how much of the director, twisted the story to make it fit with her style of shooting or whatever. I don't know, but I just think that combination was kind of different. And I know they probably thought it was a good opportunity to have these different, make it very diverse. You got different characters come from different places and stuff like that. And I understand that. But instead of doing something like that where you're switching it up a lot and it might be put together in a certain kind of way that can't be taken apart, there's certain characters you can't play with. Certain characters are malleable. Batman could be anything, we'll still love it. Change Superman a little bit, make him a little bit of an ass, everybody hates him. You know what I mean? The people who truly like Superman. I don't like the football jock Superman. I like the Superman that's the kind of the geeky kid who's just so happen to be powerful and it can help you and always see you as an equal versus somebody he's pitying or looking out for. It's a different approach. They could both save you, but it's something like the kid you grew up with looking after you versus the guy who's getting paid to be in your neighborhood to look after you. It's a different kind of looking after you, you know. And
Yeah.
so, it could be different.
Yeah, I think for every producer, they've got to take a chance and walk away from success as when they have it. A lot of people may not like his films, but not Nate Moore, but Megan Good's ex-husband. Oh, Jesus, what is the young
He
man's
makes
name?
movies?
Yeah, he's a very well-known producer, movie producer. I gotta look it up
Oh,
now.
okay.
I literally have read a book by him. Now I can't remember his
Wait,
name.
wait, he's a pastor, ain't he, or something, or no?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yes, he does preach. So I think you have Devon Franklin.
Okay.
So you take someone like Devon Franklin. Devon Franklin had a hit movie, and then he had to walk away from Sony right when he had a hit movie. Like after was it Pursuit of Happiness? I think it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to say it was Pursuit of Happiness,
Oh,
and he had to walk away after that. And he said, I want to do my thing. I want to make these Jesus movies, and that's what he's been doing.
oh,
I mean, he had the Cheetos movie that wasn't like necessarily a Jesus movie, but uh, Breakthrough was Miracles from Heaven, Woodlawn. These are all movies that people got a chance to see that were kind of a big deal. But he's done his thing in the Christian world, but he took the opportunity to leverage having that name. Black producers don't get a chance to do that often.
right.
A lot of times, black producers have to be directors and they have to be these other things. And to make your way in the industry, just as a producer, is very unique in that sense. And so, really, really excited to see what he's going to do next. If he does anything at all, he may just ride off into the sunset. I
Yeah.
have a feeling that the Black Panther 3 film is something that we may get in 2029, something like that.
Oh
But
boy,
like it feels a long way from now, but
that's fair.
it ain't. It's like, you
That's
know,
fair.
Denzel's already said that he's supposed to be written in it. And so what we're gonna see take place with T'Challa now being recast,
Anybody looking forward to seeing possibly?
I wouldn't mind John Boyega. I know it's a different body type, but he's a Black Panther body type.
Yeah, that's
When
fair.
I'm looking at Black Panther in the comics, if I'm looking at like the 70s run,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
got that
looking at
square
John
kind of looking. Yeah,
I'm looking at John Boyega all day,
that's
right?
fair. That's fair. He's like a
I'm
young
not,
Denzel Washington too. He looked like Denzel Washington to me.
yeah. So we've got, the idea that we can implement Storm and the X-Men into things. And so we get her in there. We've got a lot of storyline we can put into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to the recast, I would say John Boyega. There's a handful of other uh the Alex Cross gentleman,
Yeah, I just Yeah.
even though he's Hawkman or whatever,
That was
like
very
none of
Black Panther, that
yeah,
Hawkman was.
yeah. I think a lot of the people who've played black heroes in other films, they were just auditioning for this particular role. I don't think Chadwick left the film untouchable. I think we love Chadwick, and it would have been too soon in two or whatever,
Yeah.
but he did not leave the film untouchable. I believe that if he would have just retired and said, I don't want to do this anymore, and they recast and he was still alive, we would get over it. You see what I'm saying?
You
Like
would
he
have to.
was, yeah. And you know, it's people become a lot greater in death.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Chadwick wasn't great because I watched Ma Rainey the other day and I was like, you know, Chadwick was crazy
I
good.
can't. I ain't ready. I'm not ready to let him go, man. That's
Yeah,
the last movie I got to
yeah,
see of his, and I'm just like, I don't know. I gotta
yeah.
get over
Nah.
it.
What was the Spike Lee joint?
I've seen it.
Six is
Five
one
Bloods.
six five blood. Yeah. So it's like Chadwick brilliant in that, right?
Hmm.
Chadwick Boseman was a brilliant actor and was poised to be what I think Mahershala thinks he is. I think Chadwick was poised to be what Denzel could never be. And hear
Mm.
me out on this.
Mm.
Denzel comes to a role and he brings Denzel to a role. So I'm sitting there watching this Roman, you know, person, but it's really Denzel, you know, and it's just like, and I'm aware that it's Denzel. Chadwick, you're like, oh, he really played that horn. Oh, he really is Jackie Robinson. Oh, he really is James Brown. Oh, that's the difference
But
for me.
I think that's more to what's being written for him. Now, granted, a lot of
Mhm.
times they want Denzel, so they're
That's
writing
why you get a Denzel, and
Denzel
you,
isms. But we
yeah,
know he's capable of not being in that box. I think his
do we?
materials put him in that box versus him putting himself in that box. To me,
I put to you like
just like they
this,
write Sam Jackson like Sam Jackson, and they do that on purpose.
right? And it's true.
There is no Chadwick. At least it wasn't. He never had a Chadwick
Chadwick. But
yet.
let me say this. Denzel started being Denzel after Glory. And he pulled us out. The last time I forgot that I was watching Denzel, you can maybe say Training Day, but it was still a whole lot of Denzel in Training Day, right? What I'm saying is the product of what Denzel is still great. But I think when I say that I think Chadwick was poised to be something that was on the same lines as Denzel, but greater, was that I think that he was going to endear us to him. If he would have survived, I think he would have endeared us to him a lot more than Denzel did. Denzel was like a sex symbol for women. They loved Denzel in that way. Men loved his capacities and abilities. Chadwick made you feel like you're watching your little brother do something. Like he made you feel proud of him. He made you feel more endeared to him. So there was some roles that he still needed to play. He needed his training day. He needed a few things that made you feel a certain kind of way. Denzel's just Denzel in everything. I never root for or against. It's Denzel. Like I'm just there for the smoothness. And it's crazy how a whole brilliant plot gets changed around the greatness of this man's ability and what he brings to the screen. He changed August Wilson's play into something both on stage and what we seen on camera. He changed August Wilson's fences to something that was had a little bit more grade and a little bit more depth. To the point where, and this has had heard this from other people who played the role, that they were like, no, when Denzel was doing it, you know, you didn't want to follow it because he brought something else to it, and it was a Denzel factor, right? I do think that, but I think that's also me being a part of not the problem, because what we're saying is not problematic, but me being a part of the problem of, you know, like right now, CNN has this documentary about Kobe on right now.
Okay.
People love Kobe now that he's dead. I mean, I hate to say it that harsh.
People didn't like Kobe before that.
You know they didn't. And the crazy thing is, it's like, but we waited till retirement, and then like that retirement game, yeah, we kind of like this guy now. But yeah, man, people didn't mess with him for a long time. And I knew that as a Kobe fan. I remember the arguments. I remember people saying he would never be considered a top five. He was just a fake Jordan wannabe. I remember somebody legit arguing with me that given a Harold Miner comparison was like, well, if Harold Miner would end up in a situation the same as him, it's like Kobe died,
Right.
these murals up, people love him, they miss him. All of a sudden, Mamba mentality went from he was an a-hole. to Mamba mentality is what you need. And it's like, well, before he was a ball hog and a-hole that did, like there was a nutcase, and now it's focus and it's drive and it's all we romanticized him in death. So I am guilty of doing the same thing with Chadwick, where it's like I look back at his body of work and I think it was maybe it wasn't as great as it was. I think it will hold up though. Like I really do think it will always hold up.
Yeah, I think he's a really good actor, and I think that so I'm not taking anything from it, but like I said, I don't think that, like I said, all the characters he had was all over the place. So if Denzel doing as many real life figures like Chadwick was doing, then it would be, I think it would be different. And I think that that last movie Denzel did, yes, Denzel gonna be Denzel because it was a poorly written movie, and the lead star of that movie wasn't holding it up. So you had to let the quote unquote black guy, make
Save him.
the movie watchable, because really that lead guy, he was just like he was just there. It was
The
Denzel movie.
film,
You just wait for him to show up.
it was a film that shouldn't have been made
No,
separate from the concept of, oh, we got Denzel Washington. Okay, green lighted. Like, there's no reason to make this movie.
I'm sure, like you said, yeah, if Denzel wouldn't have signed on that thing, I don't think it would have happened. It would have been straight to
Yeah,
DVD or whatever.
yeah, there's
Because
no reason to make that.
no, no,
Like, what motivate? There was no marketplace where people was like, you know what? We need a part two 20 years later.
not for that, not for that. And the kid
Yeah,
that played
no.
in the original one, he's still alive and of age. At least get him back. So, but yeah, I
All
hear
right.
you. All right, so it's been good catching up with you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, we got can't wait so long in between times. What
I
we're gonna
know.
talk about next time, man.
Next time we're gonna have to talk about this Ryan Coogler project he's working on, Sinners. I'm digging the two trailers so far, and I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
they've been great. Yes.
And then also along those lines, we're gonna have to talk about Magazine Dreams. That movie's just coming back into light after
After the allegations,
the allegation stuff. This is
I
the movie that's supposed to put him on the map. So this got snagged away, and so this is
I
seeing
always felt like that was the movie that got away from Tyler Perry. I think he wanted that one.
Magazine. You know what?
It always takes you a second, but you get there with me.
Cause I never think that you go just be. But I should know by now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully it isn't a Tyler Perry cut. We'll see. But like I said, I'm just very curious. It looks very powerful, but you never know. You never know. We'll see if everybody's ready to give him a second chance. But yeah, but as always, man, it's always good catching up with you, hearing your perspective, and just kind of just seeing what's up. You know.
Yeah, you as well, man. I appreciate you for having me on.
All right. So that was Jay and Dru. Until next time. Peace. All
Peace.
right.